Oh, sure. My first thoughts about being approached for the series, I would love to sit here and admit that I was approached for it, but I was responding to an audition posting, so and it looked and sounded interesting, and I thought this would be a great way to do some more work here. So I responded to that, and there wasn't a whole lot posted originally. You had a small synopsis of what the series was going to be about. You were going to do it as a web series, which was at the time a newer thing that filmmakers were getting into, and now it's it's continuing, which is it's a great thing. It's a great format to use to storytell and also to get your work out in the independent world of filmmaking and storytelling. So I didn't put a whole lot of thought in it beyond that, although it was something that I was looking forward to. And once I got sides at the audition, I liked what was selected, and I thought there's some writing going on here. And then what I liked even more when I was in the audition room, and I remember this, was that Ben kept saying, you can be even more subtle. You can be even more just, telling the story and reading the words and being that person, which for me was great because it's like that's how you bring things realistically off a page. And I love that just in interacting with, we didn't know each other at the time. The first time we had met, and I loved that is what he was going for. So felt like I had a good audition, like I do with everything. I kind of left and put it out of my mind and just sort of carried on. But I enjoyed that, and I thought, that could be something cool because they are developing characters and putting the people in the story first rather than this more existential element that's happening in the series as well. So that was my first impression. Oh yeah, absolutely. Again, kind of going back to what we were just talking about initially with what you had written in your pilot, you continued that voice. That's what I was hoping for, because that was my initial impression of where you were going with the series based on that first script, that first episode. And I thought that you as writers, the three of you as writers, did a great job of continuing that thread. So once we started, I remember we met a few times, and there were a lot of great ideas that were being discussed, and you had this idea in mind, and you were going to take the story here, and you were going to achieve it this way. And I thought, great, if this happens, because you took your time after casting to do what you just explained, which was allowing the voices from your cast that you had established to start to speak for you as you were writing, which I think is a great way to approach things, especially for you three. This was one of your first projects as professional filmmakers. So once those scripts started coming to us as a cast, I thought, wow, it is an episodic that's happening, a piece at a time as your web series, but they're maintaining this story and these characters and these voices, like you mentioned, throughout. And so I remember starting to get those episodes because you were giving them to us as we were shooting and wrapping episodes, and then we were getting those pages, and I was struck because these things that I was hoping this project was going to be continued to be. So I think it's great that you put our voices in mind as you continued, but at the same time you had a direction that you were taking, and hopefully you were confident that the people that you put in place were going to be able to continue to speak those words and echo those voices and that kind of thing, which I feel like you accomplished. So I really like that approach, and it worked well for us, or at least for me as an actor, to be able to get to know who this character was, and then allow me to the best of my ability to be him. Yeah, great question about how sort of Sean's arc, how Sean changed and sort of formulated his new self as a character throughout the series. I remember we did an interview when we were we were downtown at your location where we shot James's speech at the depot, down at the depot. And I remember talking about how what I liked about Sean, about the character, was that he was very reluctant about this. And I'm not sure why I like that, other than the fact that to me it just seemed very real. That you have one character who is totally embracing it, James, and you have another character who is doing the opposite of that and not wanting it to sort of disrupt his life, but then coming to terms with the fact that it is part of his life and he can't ignore it. And it as the story weaves through its episodes, it becomes more apparent that he has to do something with it. And in the situation that he's in too with James, and I love being able to talk about all this now because it's all out, so everyone can watch this, and I don't have to worry about spoilers, things like that. But you had these two differences going on with these two best friends, and a lot of people have even mentioned that they thought we were brothers, which might be a point to discuss later on, which I can see why, because they're so close. But these two best friends are going, they're having different perceptions about their abilities. And to get back to your question, what I really liked was that Sean has to grapple with what's going on, and he does, and he doesn't know what to do. And I like the way that, again, you wrote those characters to have that tension, because they were being their real selves, and that makes for interesting storytelling, and hopefully for interesting characters too. It was interesting to me to be him and sort of pull that out, and have those emotions. So I really like the arc of him, and then sort of concluding with your question on where Sean ends up through our last couple episodes of season 1. He's faced directly with having to, he's fully involved in this, and doesn't really have a choice anymore. And it's cool to see what he does and what the other characters too are doing as well in relation to that. So I liked it a lot. I thought it made for really interesting work and hopefully interesting storytelling in these episodes. So. It was great. I didn't know either Kaya nor Chris prior to this, which I thought was cool. It was fun and interesting, and I really liked that. The thing that I thought was really cool for me was initially physically, everyone fit their roles the way that I had sort of imagined them. And that's really cool when you have that actuality, that physicality in the characters that you're working with, the actors that you're working with, and the characters that you're portraying, when it just looks like exactly how you imagine those characters on the page. So that was my first impression, and then getting to know them. Chris and I worked a lot together, and I had the chance to work with Kaya as much as we could with our scenes and kind of the direction where season 1 goes, where all of a sudden we're not seeing her. Or Sean and Chris, or excuse me, Sean and James aren't. That's funny. But she was great, really funny, really quirky. She has just a naturalness about her, and her face can just tell you that, in alignment with her character, where she's able to really register emotions. I think just the way, if you spend any amount of time with her as herself, not when she's acting, but you can quickly see how easily. I would imagine it was a pretty easy decision for you to make as filmmakers after she auditioned, that she really fit Teresa. So nothing but great things to say about her, and I hope she's doing great overseas. And Chris, I can't say enough about the guy. He just as an actor, super dedicated, super willing and wanting to do the best work that he can do, and I really liked that he grew into James as kind of as the story was unfolding. You're shaking your head. I'm glad you know what I mean. And just in terms of there's a bit of a transformation with his character, and I thought that where he was showing up each filming day that we had, you could see that happening. And so when you're watching these episodes, it's really seamless. He's in Chicago now. We miss him as well. I know he's continuing to do great work, and like my initial impression of him has rung true. He's a super dedicated actor. He's doing lots of great work in Chicago. He's still at it. So I loved my experience with him, and we had a lot of good conversations offset just about the work and about the series and about approaching things and working these scenes, and so that was a lot of fun. So prepping for this and getting ready and gearing up for our filming with him on set was great. I loved it. The rest of the gang, I was primarily with the two of them, but I got to work with all the girls that you used for the scenes at Aria, and those girls were so devoted to what they were doing. They endless hours shooting there, I think a couple of days, and they were all so great. I think you had some actors in there and some that were interested in it, and some who you knew were a perfect look for it, and so they came on board. They were great. Allie was kind of leading the charge with her character in there. Another one of our female leads that just has that emotional presence. Can't say enough about that, which was so important to bring to these female roles that are so important to this series. And Samantha, great. Samantha and I got to work together when we were doing the promo spots for launching the first couple episodes, and she's a barrel of laughs, but then she can turn it on as well. So again, super versatile. I love these strong female presences that you have in the series, because they're great voices to have in the story, and you found these great female actors to embody them, which I just loved. Brent and I had taken a couple classes together. So we knew each other through that, and again, we didn't spend more than one night on sharing the screen together at the end of the series, but super focused and drawn into being that person in his role. And then Conrad and Mike and the guys, the kidnappers, I was across the other side of the street from them one night, but we were burning the midnight oil. Late fall when we shot that, and so I kind of got to work with them as well. But it was, I could go on and on and on about everyone. It was a great experience, and it was so neat to work with all these actors. I hadn't worked with any of them before, so that was a super fun thing for me. Challenges of the production, challenges of Superhuman, everything was seamless and smooth, and there were no bumps or hiccups at all. I can't comment on that any further than no. What can I say about that? I was privy once again to the plight of filmmakers. It is such a monumental task bringing these projects together, and I've said this for years, and this project, it rang true once again. Any and every film that gets made is a miracle. There's so much that goes into it. There's so many facets. There's so many angles to cover and elements to have in place that I have great sympathy and respect for filmmakers. So I carry that with me as being just an actor on these projects, that I do my best to be 100%, 110% ready to go with what I'm supposed to do, because there's so much else going on. So that being said as well, it's so great to see when a project comes to life like this, and to have this, first of all, get finished. Second of all, to turn out as well as it has. Thirdly, to be received as well as it has. And fourthly, to hear about the possible very positive future of the series. I don't know if we can talk about that yet or not, but
I'm not talking a whole lot about that.
Okay, well, there's some things in the works apparently, so I've heard, that are leading to a possible larger audience seeing the series, which I think is awesome. Other than that, I saw great resiliency and perspective kept throughout the shoot with you all behind the scenes doing all the actual work. And you all pulled through. I know you had a lot of challenges, and it makes me respect not only the process so much more, but all of you, specifically as filmmakers, to what you went through, because you had this dogged determination that you had this thing and you had this vision for it and you were going to see it through, and you did. And I couldn't be happier about it, because I know that it has led to other things for all three of you. So that makes me really happy. Yeah, no specific things are coming to mind right away, and that's a good thing, because my lasting thoughts of this series so far are that it's been a great thing to be a part of. What are my hopes for, now that you've mentioned seasons 2 and 3, what are my hopes for where the series goes, where the story goes, and where Sean goes? Well, I'll get all philosophical again. I know I don't have the tendency to do that at all ever. But first of all, I think it's going to be really cool to see where you take this in seasons 2 and 3, because I want to see the reflection of where you will be as filmmakers when you start writing those seasons 2 and 3, because I know you're gaining a lot more experience, continuing to do work with filming and storytelling. So I hope there are traces of that in your writing. But more specifically in terms of where the story goes, I haven't thought a whole lot about plot things, but you've set yourselves up to have the potential of a lot of interesting things happening. I'm thinking more in terms of where I'm seeing other characters go. And then again, Sean, I guess sort of stepping back into that character that I've been so lucky to be able to play. Sean is sort of take a step back and kind of watch and sort of analyze and kind of look at how things are in the bigger picture in comparison. So I'm thinking about what James is thinking with what's happened and where he's going, and how specifically how season 1 ends, and Teresa's, as we think, very unfortunate fate right now, where that leaves us, and about we'll call them villains, where they're going to go, because now we've established that there's that element of family happening as well. So that's really open-ended. I know one of the missions of the series is to be tackling important issues that are happening in our real world and addressing those in a very character-driven, realistic way. So where you're going in terms of what happens next for these characters, I think is going to be really interesting, and what else is thrust in their life path. And in terms of what I would like to see with Sean is more of what you've been doing, because I think the vision that you're telling Sean's story through, a series of flashbacks, and what his life story is leading up to him as an adult during his childhood. You've done such a great job of seeing how those things that have happened to him affected him. I hope you continue to do that, because that gives the audience a really, like you wanted to do with your series, character-driven glimpse into who these people are and why they are the way they are. And there's a lot of places for Sean to go, because although he thinks he kind of carries with him a larger, bigger picture world perspective, I think he's going to start realizing that actually his view has been kind of narrow. And there's a lot of room for him to grow as a person, but also to see more of what's really going on out in the world and what his responsibility is to it.
Well, good. 'Cause that's where we're going.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right, you're making me feel like I just hit it on the head,
You
but
really-
I know that
really did
that's
in a
not the
lot of
case.
ways.
Yeah.
Boy, I really liked all the different ways that you had your bases covered with creating moods and tones, and right down to the lighting and things that you used, the color palette that you used for your cinematography, and also right down to how you had all of your characters outfitted. I love that, because when we walked in today, you're making references to Sean Driscoll this, and he would look like this, and whatever. But James had that, and Kaya had that, although she had to be in her town hall garb a little bit, and that was definitely the case for me as well, which I think helps an actor out a lot. And I loved other things about the project too, bringing on a composer. You put themes together, or Sean put themes together for different characters, and those are going to ring throughout the series. I think that's so cool, because it's one of those things that's gonna hit you subconsciously. I know it did me, and I had to learn that there was an actual theme for this character in this, and you can notice it when you go back and watch the episodes. So go back and watch the episodes, and that adds so much additionally to what's going on. So I love that. I remember you threw a couple ideas back and forth at me about graphics and things like that. I loved what you selected, what you used, those things, and I love the sort of the television-esque recipe that you're using. For these episodes, with having that opening scene, going into your credits, and then continuing on. I've mentioned before, I love the use of flashback. I would encourage you to do more of that. I think it's really great. I know it's somewhat difficult as filmmakers to do, but I think it pays dividends. And lastly, just, I don't know, whatever it takes to get us all back in town together to do this, do it. Put your thinking caps on and work something, because I think it'd be great. I think it would be really awesome, and it has to happen now because you're already alluding to seasons 2 and 3. So, yeah. Other than that, it's been a great experience. It's been a fun challenge for me as an actor, and it's fun to reminisce today about it too. All these years later. Yeah. What is it? Has it been two years?
What year is it? 2016. So 2015.
It goes by so fast.
I think we shot mostly in 2013.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've seen worse. Trust me.
Yeah.
Yeah, the different locations that you use. I know we found ourselves in cars, and we had a great, James's house was great that we used, and you had these great Minneapolis structures that you got into to use. So Minneapolis is a great setting for this as well, even though it's Mill City, but I think Minneapolis works really well for it. Or we could pull up the whole thing and go to Chicago too. That'd be fun.
Or Scotland.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. So yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's great to talk about it.